everybody. I'm going to talk about my brother. What I remember most about when my brother died is his hands. Not just his hands, but the hands of all those who loved him. It was a cold day in early December 2008. My husband and I were talking about Christmas and how we were going to decorate when the phone rang. We have 3 kids and my youngest was 6 months. The voice on the other end of the line sounded like my grandmother, but there was something terribly wrong. I heard screaming and crying in the background. I dropped the phone and grabbed my keys and drove the half-mile to my grandmother's house where my brother lived. I walked into a nightmare. My elderly grandfather was crying and hugging himself. My grandmother was in a panic. My aunt and uncle were there, so was a neighbor. I had no idea what happened, but I knew it was something horrible. Someone said, "Eddie is dead." I didn't believe it. I went to my grandfather and sat with him. I held his hands, wrapped him in my arms. But all the time I was thinking there must be some mistake. Someone thought Eddie was dead, but he really wasn't. The police came, then an ambulance for my grandfather who was having chest pain. I learned that my brother was at our cousin's house the night before, and when our cousin woke up in the morning, Eddie was dead on the couch. I still didn't believe it. He must just be sleeping. He's probably sick and needs emergency medical care. Why aren't we going over to help him? I had to see him. I had to see if there was anything I could do. My aunt, cousin, and I drove to our cousin's apartment. The police met us at the door. They weren't sure if we should go in. It might be too upsetting. I had to see my brother, though. I wrung my hands as I waited at the door. The harder I squeezed my hands together, the more aware I was of the pain. It distracted me from the other pain I was about to experience. We walked down some steps. We saw the back of the couch. I looked over the couch, and there was Eddie, mouth agape, eyes closed, stiffly lying there. He was sleeping, just sleeping. But his shirt was open, and there were electrodes on his chest. There was something not right. He wasn't breathing. He wasn't moving. My Eddie really was dead, lying there on the couch, feeling nothing, hearing nothing. I backed away. The biting cold hit me again as I went outside to call our mother. I had to tell her that her son was dead. My numb fingers pressed the buttons on the phone as I tried to formulate what I was going to say when my mom answered. She was so happy to hear my voice, so glad I called. She was sitting on her couch in her living room, next to my little sister, enjoying a Saturday morning together. How could I shatter this beautiful scene? I asked to talk to my mom's partner, Pat. I thought Pat should know first, so she could help my mom with the news. Everything happened so fast. Once the news is broken, there's no taking it back. My grandmother insisted on an open casket. I'm glad because I was able to hold Eddie's hand one more time. Eddie's hands were so thin and bony, so unexpectedly cold. I had the ridiculous notion that I could hold them in my own hands and warm them up, still feeling uncertain of the reality of his death. I kissed his forehead twice, once for me and once for our mom who lived too far away to be there. The thought kept hitting me. How can she believe he's dead when she can't see him for herself? I don't think I'd ever believe it if I didn't get to see him for myself. Eddie's hands. The little hands I held when he was first born. The hands I held when I was helping him walk. The hands I held as we walked to the library or the park together. My grandfather's hands. The old, wrinkled, gnarled hands I grasped as we learned of Eddie's passing. Those old hands held so many little children's hands as they led him down new little paths on life's journey. My grandmother's hands, so soft and fragile, trembling and tentative, reaching out for comfort from relatives who were hurting just as much as she was. My mom's hands, gripping the phone, fumbling for a cigarette as she helplessly sat, thousands of miles away, hearing the most dreaded news a mother can ever hear. And my hands, sore and bruised from my trying to bring the pain away. We learned weeks later that Eddie died from a drug overdose. He had been struggling with addiction for years, and it finally got the best of him. It began with experimenting with marijuana when he was a young teen. Moved on to alcohol, then prescription drugs, huffing keyboard cleaner, more prescription drugs, and finally one methadone tablet bought from a guy down the road. One methadone tablet killed my brother, but years of addiction led to that one night where he went just one step too far. Lives will never be the same. Moments in time have been forever altered. We will never know what life would have been like for him. He was a kind-hearted, wonderful soul, yet the world will never have the honor of getting to know him. I have a remaining vision of my little brother, Eddie. We were standing together on the top deck of the cruise ship, the Scotia Prince. I had gotten us tickets to sail to Nova Scotia for our 10th and 20th birthdays. Eddie held a little disposable camera in his hands as we looked out over the railing. He turned to me and said, "I'm so scared I'll drop my camera and all our memories will be gone forever." I took his little camera and tucked it safely inside my purse.